I was in Albertsons the other day and I came across this former Marine who's a master gunnery sergeant. I've never met a master gunnery sergeant. I've known a lot of sergeant majors, a lot of first sergeant, master sergeants, but I've never met a master gunnery sergeant. Every time I come across somebody like that, either in a store or someplace out and about, it always throws me back to my youth. Every time someone sees this eagle, globe, and anchor on my cap here, we always stop and talk. And for a couple of hours after that, I'm kind of in the zone of where I reminisce about the old days. When I was 18 years old, I'd been out of high school a year, and I was restless. I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something important in my life. I had a buddy that had gone in the Army. He'd come back after boot camp in his uniform. We were in Big Boy's restaurant there in Phoenix, and he just came out. I just remember the effect that had on me when I saw him. I thought, wow, that's really cool. So it got me thinking about the military, and I was really impressed with the Green Berets. That whole mystique was coming about because of the Vietnam War, and so, there was a Barry Sadler song, Green Berets. So I was thinking about the Army. I wanted to go in the Army. I wanted to do something with my life that was important, and so I studied up on the Green Berets, the A-Team, all the specialties and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting. My dad had come over from Phoenix, Covina in California, and he'd gone down, got a motel in Anaheim for some business thing. And one of his associates was visiting with him one day, and I'd gone down there visiting too. And this business associate of his had his son and his son's buddy with him. And I got to talking to them, and they were in their late teens, early 20s. And they were hockey players, ice hockey. It was interesting listening to them talking. They were pretty rough and tumble guys. And they talked about how they were going in the Marine Corps and they were going to go into force recon. I'd never heard that term before, but it made me become aware of the fact that every branch of the service has their special forces. The Army is the Green Berets, the Rangers. The Navy is their SEALs. Of course, I didn't know what SEALs were at the time. But the Marine Corps has the force recon. And when I started learning about that, find out what it was all about, the mystique of that just drove home to me. And as I was preparing to enlist in the Army, I was starting to take a Kenpo karate class in Glendora, California. In the dojo where we met, there was a fellow that became really, really good friends with. His name was Kenny Danielson. And he had got that, he had just joined that delayed deployment program where you can sign up, get all ready, pick your time to go in, and you don't have to go in right away. You can spend almost up to a year having joined the Marines, but not go on an active duty yet. And so he talked me into doing that. And so instead of going to the Army, I went down to Azusa, California. The recruiter, I remember, Gunny Sergeant Miller was the guy there, and he's just an interesting fellow. He convinced me that the Marines was the way to go, and so I signed up, and I wasn't any time at all before I was in boot camp. And so Kenny and I went through the 8-week boot camp program. It's interesting how I know that before the Vietnam War era and even since then, the boot camp has been extended to 13, 14 weeks, something like that. But they cut it down because they needed bodies, they needed people in the military faster. And so I went through an 8-week program. And I just remember the experiences we had there with our drill instructors. The one thing that I remember from the dojo experiences was our the leader there, the Jinsei, I can't think of his name here, but anyway, the guy that teaches the program, he had been in the Marines, and he says his last parting comment was, make sure you stay on the good side of the black belt, which had a double entendre meaning because of the black belt concept of karate. But when I got to boot camp, I realized that the platoon commander wore a black leather belt. And that's what he meant when you stay on the good side of that black belt. So anyway, so Kenny and I went through the boot camp. It was really interesting because the junior drill instructor, his name was Sergeant Bailey. And man, that was one tough dude. We had 3 drill instructors. We had Gunnery Sergeant Larson, who was a platoon commander, and then Staff Sergeant Ezel. He was kind of how would I describe him? He was kind of like a the character from Disney's kind of like a Goofy. He was kind of like da-da, da-da, da-da kind of guy, but you could tell that he was a tough guy, but he just had that laid-back, lazy attitude about him. And Bailey, Sergeant Bailey's E5, he was short and just absolutely a tear with his attitude toward us. I remember we'd been in boot camp about a week, and we were all sitting in the Quonset hut on the floor. And I remember Sergeant Bailey jumped up on a desk at the end of the Quonset hut inside and stood there. And I could just looking up. I could see my mind's eye now what he was. He looked down and he says, "Man, you guys, it went through the normal boot camp drill instructor routine, like in Full Metal Jacket, I'll forget his name, right? Ernie.
From now on, you will speak only when spoken to. And the first and last words out of your filthy sewers will be, sir. Do you maggots understand that? Sir, yes, sir.
How that dialogue that they had, it was just one thing after another. Anyway, Sergeant Bailey was doing that routine with us there, and his parting shot was, "I know you guys are communists. The only thing I don't know the difference is because whether you're red Chinese or Russian." He jumped off the table and got us up and took us out and did PT. It was just a funny experience. But anyway, after boot camp, my MOS was 1371. I was a combat engineer. And so I was headed off for basic training school, BST, in Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Kenny, his MOS was 0331 as a machine gunner. And he was going straight to Vietnam. And when we left boot camp, that's the last I saw of him. It wasn't the last I saw of him in my lifetime, but I lost contact as far as what his path was after that. And so now, that was 1966. In July or August 1966, I went to North Carolina to BST, and Kenny went off to be a machine gunner. So we fast forward to 1969, and we're at Covina, and I'm sitting in my car waiting for someone who had gone into McDonald's. So I was sitting in a McDonald's parking lot there in Covina. And I happened to look up and I saw Kenny walking toward me. He was in a crowd of guys. And I recognized him right away, but there was something different about him. I couldn't quite tell what it was, but he had a grizzled look about him. He had a 2-inch cigar stub stuck in his mouth, and he just had that bulldog kind of, I don't know, grizzled look about him, just walking away. And because he was engaged, talking with the guys, I didn't want to interrupt him. So stupidly, I did not stop. If I'd known then what I know now about, how it feels later when you see somebody who you knew from the Corps, I should have stopped and talked to him, reminisced, found out stuff, but I didn't. I just watched him walk past me. But when it was done, I could tell that there had been a massive transformation in Kenny. And I don't know what he went through when he went to Vietnam, how many tours he did. Don't know anything about that. But he was a changed man. There was something about him that I just knew. I don't know. It was like, if you can picture in your mind's eye a grizzled old drill instructor drilling his recruits out on the parade deck, that's what he reminded me. He was the same age I was. I was, 69. I was 22 at the time, and so he was about the same age, 22, 23. But man, he looked 45 or 50. It was just an interesting feel that I had when I saw him. Anyway, that's why I joined the Marine Corps. And every time that I come across a former Marine or whatever, especially like this Master Gunnery Sergeant, I always go back to that time when I realized that we do things when we're in our youth that we probably wouldn't do as a senior citizen. Anyway, thanks, and I hope you enjoyed that story. Always faithful.